Most people see Table of Contents under the Layout menu, and they think it's just for books. You know, heading 1 in a book and heading 2 and so on. And sure, it can do that, but this powerful feature lets you build collections of any kind of paragraph. For example, you could build a list of advertisers in a magazine, or a list of catalog items, or a list of figures. Anything that you've applied a paragraph style to, you can collect with this feature. Here's how you do it. I'm going to create a table of contents in this book, not in Chapter 1, but in my TOC document, which is sort of my front matter. I'll double-click on that to open it, and I'm now going to go to the Layout menu and choose Table of Contents. To build my table of contents, I need to tell InDesign which kinds of paragraphs to collect. In this case, I'm going to grab everything that's a chapter heading, that's the name of the chapter, and then I'll click Add, and that adds it to my Include Paragraph Styles list. Then I'll come down and I will add all my heading 1s. You can also just double-click on this to add it to the list. But I don't want my table of contents to look like my document pages. That is, I don't want my chapter heads to be listed in the chapter head style. So InDesign lets me map this style to a different style. I'm going to say everywhere that it collects a chapter head, it should apply in the table of contents my TOC chapter head. I built these paragraph styles, TOC chapter head and TOC headings. I built those in advance for this document, and I'll choose TOC chapter head to map with this. Then I'll click on heading 1, and I'll say everywhere you find a heading 1 in the table of contents, you should show it in a different style. I'll say TOC headings. So that's pretty much it. The last thing I need to do is turn on Include Book Documents. Because a book panel was open when I opened the Table of Contents dialog box, it gives me the option of including the entire book. That way I get a table of contents of the book, not just this one document. I'll click OK, and it goes through and collects all of those chapter names and headings from the book and loads them into my place cursor. I'll press Shift Page down a couple of times to jump to page 3, and then I'll just click over here on my page to add the table of contents. It places the table of contents in here. It grabbed all the right page numbers, grabbed all the chapter heads and headings and so on, and it's looking pretty good. Now I need to tell you a couple of things about Table of Contents in InDesign. One is that it's not a live update. That is, if I go in here and change some heading in Chapter 4, it does not automatically get updated in my Table of Contents. I have to update it manually. And to do that, I simply place my text cursor inside the story. I just double-clicked to switch to the Type tool. And then I go to the Layout menu and choose Update Table of Contents. That's how you update it. I don't need to update it right now, but I just wanted to let you know that's how you would update your table of contents if anything changes. Let's say your page numbering changed or something like that. The second thing I want to point out is how to make this a little bit more pretty. Right now it's kind of looking clunky. You know, the page numbers are not all the same. They're not consistent. I'd really like all these page numbers to be along the right edge of my text frame and stuff like that. How do we do that? Well, some of it we can change by changing the paragraph styles, but some of it we have to change in the Table of Contents dialog box itself. So I'm going to go back to the Layout menu, choose Table of Contents, and then I'm going to click on the More Options button. That gives me a bunch more stuff that lets me fine-tune and tweak my Table of Contents to look a little bit better. For example, I can say that between the entry and the number, I don't want a regular tab. That's the code for tab. So I'm going to delete that, and instead I'm going to use this little flyout menu to say, give me the code for a right indent tab. Right indent tabs, as we learned in the Essential Training title, means push it all the way to the right indent, which is, of course, in this case, the edge of the text frame. And I want to apply a character style to that right indent tab. I'm going to choose dot leader. This won't actually add a dot leader, as we'll see in a minute, but, well, you'll understand why I've applied that character style in just a moment. Then the page number itself is going to appear after the entry. I could say I want it to be for the entry or no page number if I want to, but in this case I want to say I want it to appear after the entry, and I want it to be in a style called TOC number. I created these character styles in advance so that I could apply them. Now I need to do the same thing to my chapter head. So I click on chapter head, it all resets, so I better change this. I'll remove that. I'll change this to right indent tab. I'll apply my character styles one more time. The page number itself is going to be TOC number, and I'm good to go. There's all kinds of other things we can do in this dialog box. For example, we could sort the entries in alphabetical order, which is not appropriate for a book table of contents, but maybe if it was a list of advertisers or something like that. We can also create PDF bookmarks. We'll be talking about that in a movie in the next chapter. And we're going to replace the existing table of contents with all of these settings. The run-in checkbox means take these settings, the chapter head followed by headings, and make them all one single paragraph as opposed to one paragraph after another. So I'm not going to use run-in, but just so you know, that's what's going on here. The other things are pretty self-explanatory, hidden layers and number paragraphs and so on. I'll go ahead and click OK, and InDesign will go build the table of contents one more time, but with my new settings. It says that it's been updated successfully, so I click OK, and you can see that it has. Now, all my page numbers are consistent because they have a character style applied to them, and they're flush against the right edge of the frame. I'd like to add dot leaders in here, so to do that, I need to change the paragraph style itself. I'll open the Paragraph Styles panel. In this case, I'm going to click on the TOC chapter head style because I know that the other ones are mapped to that. I'll right-click on it, or control-click with one button mouse on a Mac, and edit that style in order to give it a dot leader. To do that, I'll go to the Tabs panel. Let me move this down so we can see what we're doing. Oh, I need to turn on preview. Yeah, preview checkbox is turned on. I need to add a leader, a little dot, to that tab. But there is no tab here because it's a right indent tab. So what do? Well, as we learned in the Essential Training title, I can apply a leader to a right indent tab just by adding a leader to any random tab in here. So I'm just going to click randomly on my tab ruler here and give it a dot leader. And when I do that, I'll click up here, when I do that, you can see that it added the dot leader to this tab, and the right indent tab picked up the leader from that tab and used it in my paragraph. So I'll click OK, and I'm done. By the way, you'll notice that these are not just one dot after another, they're kind of spaced out, right? Let me select that by double-clicking on it. That's because I applied that dot leader character style to the right indent tab. That dot leader character style made each of those little dots smaller, down to 6 points, and applied tracking so that it spread them out. So sure, we've used this table of contents feature to build a normal book table of contents, but you can see that this feature could easily be used to build a table of anything, as long as you have used your paragraph styles consistently.